We'll look at ABC Bot, a DDoS botnet targeting Linux servers.
So, Jim, looks like you've got a story here about a DDoS botnet that targets Linux servers, in particular, I think, somebody's cloud servers, to build out the botnet. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, this was an interesting one that I heard about indirectly, and I finally went back and read the original write-up by and we've talked about them before, the NetLab 360. It's a Chinese research group that discovered this botnet, and originally they found it in July, and it has been evolving over the last few months, as these things often do. And in this particular one, they call it ABC Bot, and it is both a wormable. It once it infects a system, it looks around and tries to propagate by taking advantage of a number of vulnerabilities. It's got exploits for a number of vulnerabilities in there. It can set up its own web server. It can try to take advantage of weak passwords. And most recently, it got an updated DDoS functionality added to it. There was code in there back in July that indicated that the DDoS functionality was probably coming. It's got auto update capabilities, and so it updated. 8 days after they first found it, it updated to add some domain generation code to it, and then in October, there were a couple of other updates, including some significant changes to the structure of the code. And then they added a DDoS module, and then they completely replaced that DDoS functionality, 10 days later with another module. So it's been kind of interesting, and I really do highly recommend you check out the write-up in the netlab.360.com blog there. But all sorts of capabilities. It is UPX packed, which UPX is a relatively simple packer if to unpack, but it copies itself onto the system using some innocuous names, bin Docker logger, user bin Docker logger, and etc IP tables update. Turns out that each of those three executables has a different purpose. One of them sets up the scanning capability to propagate. One of them sets up a web server. And so far, it seems mostly targeted, at least from what I've seen, at some cloud operations in China, Huawei Cloud. But the capabilities of this actually would allow it to propagate much further. Now, fortunately, so far, the actual numbers of compromised systems seem to be relatively low, but it's one that's being actively updated, and so it's one to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm reading through this as well, and there's some interesting little tidbits here. They're using the pages.dev domain for some of this, which I think it looks like it's like hosting for developers, except it can also be used to host arbitrary stuff. They have a DGA, but if the DGA, first off, they use Tor, but if the Tor fails, they use the DGA. And if the DGA fails, they fall back to a DGA-generated GitHub account name. which is something I have not seen before. The combination of using GitHub as hosting, as well as generating the name of the account based on the DGA. So some of this stuff is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not actually looked at a sample, but since I was reading this write-up, my plans are, since we got a holiday coming up next week, and I'll have an extra long weekend to play, that I want to get my hands on a sample here and dig into this a little bit, take a look at it.
And it looks like you're going to have plenty to dig into, especially seeing as it is still evolving. Who knows? By the time that you get to it, you might find that there's been even further features added to it.
Yeah, and some of the interesting things, it uses base 64, but it modifies the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it XORs. It uses, after it base 64 decodes, then it XORs with right now a hard-coded key, but that obviously can be modified as they do the automatic updates. It looks, like I said, it looks interesting, and it is, in this case, it's unlike a lot of the bots that we monitor on a regular basis that are going after Windows systems. This is going after Linux systems, which means likely they're targeting cloud, because we see a lot of cloud servers run Linux. So
cool.
Yeah, it's just I thought it was fascinating seeing just the evolution just in the last 5-6 months. Apparently it's written in Go, which I've got to teach myself one of these days. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting sample, and one that we need to keep an eye on.